Hello, we're making a balsamic marinated flank steak today. For this, you probably have nearly everything in your pantry, so this should be a fairly easy one to put together. And because grilling is always preferable to turning on the oven in the hot summertime, I like this recipe for the summer. So I do make it in the wintertime when I can get out to my grill, but I like to be able to grill the flank steak because it has these long fibers. I like to get a nice char on it, and then we cut it across the fiber so it's a lot easier to chew and eat. So you're going to need a 3-pound flank steak. This happens to be just slightly more, but it's no big deal. And I've put it into a ziplock bag because that's where I'm going to marinate it. So there's actually 2 pieces here. I'm going to just move this off to the side because we're going to make our marinade right into this container right here. So for the marinade, and I'm going to make it as we go, we're going to need a tablespoon of rosemary. You like how I repurposed this one? So if you have fresh rosemary, you can use that, but I'm going to use a tablespoon of dried rosemary, a tablespoon of oregano, or if you don't have oregano and you have marjoram, you can use marjoram. They're cousins, if you will. We're going to use a tablespoon of whole grain, not stone ground, but whole grain Dijon mustard. So if you don't have it, don't worry about it. Use what you have, but the whole grain, I'm going to put just a little bit more than that since I didn't get it all. There we go. So 1 tablespoon of whole grain mustard. We're going to use a 1/2 cup of balsamic vinegar. When it comes to garlic, I like a lot of garlic. So you can have the amount of garlic. I'm putting in 4 fresh cloves of garlic. And I'm marinating this 24 hours before I'm actually going to use it. But it needs a minimum of 2 hours of marinade so that that flavor can penetrate. The neat thing about this is we're going to use the marinade, but we're also going to use it as a sauce. So we're not going to put all the marinade in with the meat, because once we do that, we can't use it because it'll be contaminated, because it'll be raw meat. So I'm just going to stir this up. I'm going to add some salt and pepper to taste right now. And to taste meaning I'm probably going to put about a teaspoon of salt and about 4 or 5 turns of our pepper mill. All right, maybe 10 because of the way it's coming out. So about a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Again, I'm just going to combine that. And now you could have done all of this in a blender, but I find that this amount is just not enough. So I just do this right here in my mixing bowl, if you will, in their measuring cup, because I'm going to pour it into the bag, and it just makes it easier. So you can see I'm just drizzling in the oil. And I'm going to keep doing that over and over. I'm just going to keep going with this full cup of oil until it's fully combined. And then we're going to pour it into the bag with the meat. So we're just going to keep doing this. This takes a little bit of time and a little bit of muscle. But like I said, you could use a blender. I just find that because it's not a lot of liquid, it's not worth me getting the blender out and dirty. So now that everything's, mostly combined, I'm just going to let that stream go a little bit faster. And keep whisking. It's good for your forearms. And it's thickening up just like we like. So we've got to just gonna keep going. Almost done. You can do this. All right, just keep going. Just pour the rest of this in. And I'm using olive oil, but if you don't have olive oil, you can use vegetable oil. The olive oil, because I'm using an extra virgin olive oil, it adds a level of creaminess that you may not, fruitiness that you may not get with a vegetable oil. But you can see we've got a nice creamy marinade. So I'm going to put about half of this in with the meat. And I use the bag because I get full contact. You can just do this in a shallow baking dish. Just make sure that if you do, you flip it every so often. All right, so I'm going to reserve the rest for later. Actually put just a little bit more. There we go. And then what I do is I'm going to close up the bag. I'm going to get, I don't want to say all the air out because I can't, but most of the air out. And then I like to turn things around and make sure that the marinade gets everywhere. So while this is marinating overnight, I will check on it every few hours. I'll move things around because I want to make sure it gets everywhere. You can see it's not on one side just yet, but it'll get there. You just got to keep moving it around. Just be careful you don't break the bag. Don't be too vigorous. But you want to make sure that once everything gets in contact, which is what we're doing right now, that's when I actually get the rest of the air out. And that just gives me room to move things around. That's the only reason why I do it that way. So now I'm just going to try and get all the rest of that major part of the air out. So we have good contact. And this is going to go in rest marinade for the next 24 hours. And then we're going to simply grill it up. This is one of those quick and easy recipes that you can make and have it prepared. You can, one of the other things I tend to do with this is I will actually get to this stage, pop it in the freezer, and I'll just pull it out when I'm ready to cook it off because the rest of this marinade won't go bad, right? So we just put that in the fridge, save that off till we're ready to cook it. See you in about 24 hours. Okay, so we've got our meat has been out for about 30 minutes just so it can come to room temperature. I've left it in the bag for now. And I've also got some tomatoes that were ripened on the vine. They're going to also go on the grill. And we'll serve the meat with the tomatoes, and it makes a really nice visual as well. So we're getting our grill up to temperature. I like to get my grill up to about 500 degrees. It'll go down once I open it, but that burns off anything that might have been there. You're going to want to, clean off your grill and maybe oil it a little bit. But remember, there is some oil on the meat itself, so you're going to want to watch for flare-ups. So as soon as our grill is ready, as far as temperature goes, we're going to get this on there. All right, so just so that you can see, I've got the tomatoes on. I'm going to turn the heat down on the side that the tomatoes are on so they don't get too crazy. And we're going to wait for our meat about 4 minutes per side until it gets to about 120 degrees. Now, when I first put this on, this piece was folded over and this piece was folded over. So I just lay it down and open it up as it is here, because as you can see, it's a pretty big piece of meat. The other thing that you can do is actually cut it into thirds to make it a little more manageable, but I like to keep it whole. It's just a personal preference. And I'm going to turn it. First, I'm going to take it from this position and turn it 90 degrees to this position. Then I'm going to flip it over. and do the same thing. So for a total of 4 minutes, or until I reach an internal temperature of 120 degrees. And then we're going to let it rest, and then we're going to slice it. So we'll be back. Okie dokie, let's see what's happening here. All right, so you notice I have turned it 90 degrees. Now I'm going to take it from here to a hotter part of the grill, because this part is not going to be as hot now. And just lay it down. And you see, that's how you get your cross hatching that you're always looking for, which is beautiful. Now my tomatoes are blistering, so I'm actually going to turn them just a little bit. But I think they're ready to come off. So I'm going to go ahead and get my tray and get them off. All right, so again, my grill has come back up to temperature. And now I'm just going to turn this one more time to a hot part of the grill. Woo! And I'm going to leave it here for about 2 more minutes. I can tell by feel that this is going to be ready here in the 2 minutes, but you want to use your thermometer if you're unsure. And then we're going to let it rest so that the juices don't all run out. It gives a chance for all the juices within the meat to redistribute themselves again as it cools just a little bit. If you cut it too soon, all of that runs out, and that's how you end up getting tough meat that you've grilled. So we're going to want to let that sit. So I'm going to close this up, let it grill for another 2 minutes, and we're done. All right, we brought our meat in. It is now resting. Our tomatoes are fine. There's nothing we need to do for our tomatoes. We're just going to use our platter. Once we slice this up, we're going to slice it and put it on our platter, and then add our tomatoes to make it look pretty. But this has to rest. All right, it's time to slice up our meat. It's been resting. We're going to use a long slicer. Use whatever you have, but you see how the fibers are going in this direction? We want to cut across that. And we're also going to cut on the bias. So you see, instead of me cutting straight up and down, you're going to see my knife tilted to the side. And I do that so we get nice pretty pieces, first of all. And you see, then I turn my knife off to the right to get that out. This is cutting on the bias. And of course, as we move in further, you'll see it's rarer than on the ends. So you're going to want to cut the way you're most comfortable. And as you slice through, try and keep your pieces even. It's not the end of the world if you don't slice it evenly. And you can see I have my platter here, so I'm going to do enough for my platter, and the rest, you know, I can refill the platter later. You can have it for something else as leftovers, or to refill the platter. So you see how these pieces are nice and rare, the way I like it. That's what the 120 degrees got me. If you don't like it this rare, take it up another 5 degrees. And then when it's done resting, it'll look beautiful. It's going to go up about 5 degrees when you're resting your meat. So just keep that in mind. Now I'm going to leave this last little bit together. I'm going to move it all onto my platter. All right. So I'm going to take that beautiful end piece that I haven't cut, and I'm going to add it to the platter as well, just again for looks. This is for presentation purposes. I'm going to put as much of the meat as I can on here, as long as it looks pretty. I'm not going to get all of it. It's not all going to fit, and that's just fine, because then you have little snacks for your chef. And who doesn't want little snacks? I know I do. It's part of the fun of cooking. All right, so you can show the temperature of the meat by doing this. And then I'm going to take a few of my tomatoes, put them around, put them on top. You could do this with raw tomatoes too, but the intent that I have here is that you're going to actually eat some of these along with. All right. And yes, it got a little charred. That's okay. It's beautiful stuff right here. Now, the last thing that you're going to do when it comes to this, and do not get rid of this, you're going to use this, you know, to drizzle on your tomatoes. Beautiful olive oil. Never get rid of that. And if you recall, we had the rest of our dressing. So the rest of your dressing can be served on the side. I'm going to put just a little bit on here, just so people know that there is more. And you're ready. Everything is cooked for you. Ready to go. You can eat this hot or cold. I like to have it almost at room temperature by the time that it's done cooling and such. Remember, you can slice this however is easiest for you, but just make sure you're going against the grain. So you're going in this direction. And I want you to try this because it's something that's really easy to put together. You can pull it out at a moment's notice, cook it up, and that's delicious.